Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, I'm Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, just about anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for the week of October 15th through 21st. Let's get started. The first thing we sold was something we found in the $30 storage unit that we purchased. The storage unit was really unimpressive, but we did make our money back already, maybe 5 to 6 times over at this point. And we're still selling things, maybe not every day, but on a regular basis. We are definitely going to be on the lookout for another storage unit. We were just talking about that yesterday. So this item that we sold was a WWE Rick Rude Elite Flashback Series Simply Ravishing Replacement Robe. It was for a Barbie size wrestling doll. I'm sure they would love to hear me describe that as a Barbie size doll. But at first I thought it was actually like Barbie clothes, but it wasn't. It was WWE clothing. This sold for $10.98 almost immediately on an offer to buyer. And we had broken down our cost of the items from that storage unit at just 23 cents. I had made it work with my math and said that each item cost either 23 cents or 24 cents. And this item was on my spreadsheet for just 23 cents. Next up was a vintage Panasonic digital OmniMovie VHS camcorder. It was one of the big ones that you put on your shoulder and it had the case with it. It was in okay condition. Like the cover, the foam covering on the microphone was rotted away from age. We did not have the battery, so it was untested, but we did manage to sell that for $50 even, and we had paid $10 for that at a garage sale. And I did learn from the person who was purchasing it from us that that was going to a high school for use in their latest production as a prop. So that's cool. I always like to know what our items are going for. Next up was a Fibercraft new in package music box for a doll, and it played the song Let Me Call You Sweetheart. This was a brand new sealed in package item. We had found this in the Goodwill bins and it sold for our full asking price of $12.99, and we had paid 67 cents for each of the items that we had picked up at the Goodwill bins that day. We were surprised to see that we had received negative feedback on this item. And just one day we were looking at our feedback and we saw that we had gotten negative feedback on this item. The buyer had never reached out to us prior to leaving negative feedback. We had no idea that there was any issue with this item, and I screenshotted a photo of the feedback and I'll show it to you here to see what it said. But it stated that the item didn't work or something along those lines. Of course, this was brand new in package. We did not test it before we sent it because it was brand new in package, and we couldn't test it without opening the package. And then once we opened it, then therefore it would no longer be brand new in package. But of course, if we had known that there was an issue with the item and the buyer had reached out to us, we certainly would have come to some agreement to make it right with them. Of course, they didn't do that. We were never given that opportunity. I don't know what was wrong with it. I actually am not that familiar with these electronic music boxes. It was an old stock item, so I'm guessing that it probably just needed a new button battery. We would have been happy to just refund her the cost of the item and suggested that she replace the button battery. I don't, know. We were never given that opportunity, but I did reach out to the buyer and I said, I'm so sorry to hear that you were disappointed in your item. I've seen your negative feedback. We were disappointed that you did not reach out to us prior to leaving negative feedback. As you can imagine, negative feedback is very damaging for a small business like ours. Buyers rely on the feedback of other buyers to determine whether or not to make a purchase on eBay. So when they see feedback like this, it might sway them away from purchasing from us. And you did not reach out from us prior to leaving the feedback to give us an opportunity to make it right, which we would have been happy to do. eBay has a feedback revision request option. Would you be willing to revise your feedback if we are able to offer a solution that's satisfactory for both of us? And she responded and said, yes, I would be happy to revise my feedback if we're able to come to an agreement. So I said, great, thank you so much. I appreciate that offer. We're happy to offer you a full refund for the item. You don't need to send it back to us. And I'll process that refund and send you the revision request. Thank you again for offering to revise your feedback. So I processed her refund and sent the revision request. And of course, she did not revise her feedback. A couple of days went by. She didn't revise her feedback. I reached out to her several more times. She responded back and said, I am very satisfied with the outcome. And I was like, okay. You still haven't revised your feedback. I'm glad you're satisfied, but you still haven't revised your feedback. We've got this big negative feedback on our account. So at that point, I did reach out to eBay through the chat feature and explained the situation. And I said, I have it in writing that she has agreed to revise her feedback. And I also have it in writing that she is satisfied with the outcome. What recourse do I have? Maybe she thinks that by responding to me and saying, I am satisfied with the outcome, that in fact was the feedback revision. So they said, too bad, so sad, there's not anything you can do. You need to give her more time. And I'm like, well, I don't like having this negative feedback. I know that sounds silly, but to me, having that negative feedback on there was just eating at me. And I knew that the more time that went by, the less likely it would be that she would revise that feedback. And then that feedback revision would close and the window of opportunity would be gone. So at that point, I reached out to eBay for Business through Facebook and contacted them and went through the whole thing again, told them that I had it in writing and explained that perhaps she thought that by responding to me, that was a feedback revision. And they said the same thing. They said, there's nothing you can do. Maybe she just needs a little bit more time and we can't make her revise her feedback. And I'm like, I know, I'm not saying you can make her, but she has agreed to do it at this point. Can you not just remove the negative feedback? Obviously, she's satisfied now. She's stated that she's satisfied. And they said no. And I was just, at that point, I had resigned myself. We now have this negative feedback on there. But I gave it one more shot. Right after getting off with eBay for Business, I sent her one more message and said, this is very damaging to our account. I know you agreed to revise your feedback. It hasn't been revised yet. I'm requesting one more time that you please revise the feedback. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And at this point, I had already blocked her. I felt like even if I am pestering her, there's really, at this point, what else can she do? She's already left a negative feedback. And I've already blocked her from purchasing any future items. There's no risk to me. The risk has already been done. So she did not respond. Nothing happened. But then about 30 minutes later, I looked at my feedback and the feedback was just gone. So I'm like, well, what happened? I don't know what happened. She never responded to me. I don't know if on a feedback revision, do you have the opportunity to just remove a feedback and not revise it? I'm actually not sure what the answer to that question is. So let me know in the comments below if you know. Or did eBay have a change of heart after I got off with them and actually go in and take the feedback down? I mean, I do not know what happened, but whatever happened, I was thrilled with it. The feedback was gone and I just moved on. I just quietly walked away and I was like, okay, well that worked out. I'm not going to say another word about it. So I'm sure she was probably like, this lady is crazy. I don't want to ever buy from her ever again. And I'm thinking in my mind, I don't want this lady to ever buy from me again. So we just went our separate ways and moved on. But that's what happened with that purchase. Next up were two of the Texas Rangers baseball pins that I got at the estate sale. One of them was the pickle pin, or the cactus pin that you saw maybe in the haul video that we did. And the other was a service pin. It said second to none. We had paid a combination of $4.70 for both of these pins, and they sold together for an offer to buyer of $25.98. Next up was a 13-piece lot of infant boys 0 to 3 months clothing. This was a lot that we had gotten in the storage auction purchase. So we had broken down our cost from that and said we had just broken it down based on listings. So our cost of goods on this whole entire lot of clothing was just 24 cents. And this lot sold for $18.99, which was our full asking price, and we got positive feedback on this purchase. Next up was a 17-inch Greenbrier brown plush stuffed Cuddly Cousins teddy bear. It was new with tags. We had gotten it at the thrift store. We paid $1.07 for it, and it sold for our full asking price of $12.99. Next up was a United States Air Force vintage dress blue uniform jacket. This we had gotten at the thrift store. We paid $5.41, and it sold on best offer for $32 even. Next up was a pair of Vans boys size 10 khaki chino pants. These were new with tags. We had paid $2 for these at a garage sale, and they sold for $26.99, which was our full asking price. Next up was a Banana Republic metallic gray shawl. I described it as a grandpa cardigan. It was like kind of a chunky knit, heavy grandpa cardigan. I don't know how else to describe it. It just, reminded me of something that a grandpa would wear, but it was designed for a woman, but it just had that grandpa look about it. We had paid $5.86 for this at a thrift store. It did not move very fast. I'm not sure why, but it did eventually sell for $40 even on best offer. I did have it priced kind of high, but it was very heavy and bulky, and I knew the shipping was going to be kind of high. Next up was a 375-piece lot of white plastic alphabet letter beads. We had gotten these at an estate sale in a big box of pins and patches that were related to archery, and these were just in that big box lot that we had gotten. We had broken down our cost of each of the items from that box at just 3 cents. So we had almost no cost associated with these, and they sold on best offer for $6.50. Next up was a pair of jeans by the brand Angel's Jeans. They were a contrasted stitch, like a thick stitch, flap pocket bootcut jeans, and we found these in the storage auction. So we paid 24 cents for these, and they sold pretty quickly really quickly, like within a week, for $24.99, which was our full asking price. Next up was a really cute, large, it was really big, like this big, 10 by 7 hand-painted Santa Claus gourd. And it was signed by an artist named Peggy Taylor. We had found this in the Goodwill bins, and I was surprised to see it didn't really have any scratches. It was in great condition for a hand-painted item. We had paid 67 cents per item at the Goodwill bins that day, and this sold for $31.98. It did take a couple of years to sell, but we did get positive feedback on it. Next up was another lot of baby clothes that we got from that storage unit. This was an 11-piece newborn clothing lot that we paid just 24 cents for, and it sold for $15.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was an Ann Taylor Loft corduroy embroidered flare miniskirt. This we got at a thrift store. We paid $3.24 for it, and it sold for $18.38 on offer to buyer. Next up was a subscriber sale. This was a Douglas 8-inch beige plush buttercup yellow lab new with tags toy. This we got at the Goodwill bins. It was brand new with tags. If we ever see new with tags toys or plush, we always pick them up in the bins. This day we paid only 92 cents per item at the bins, and it sold on best offer for $20.98. And the subscriber that we sold this to is Johanna. So we say thank you so much to Johanna. I'm going to link her YouTube channel so you guys can go check that out. She is also an eBay seller. And Johanna left us positive feedback on that purchase as well. So thank you so much for that. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins, and this was an 18 count package of Day Spring Christmas cards. They had an Away in the Manger theme. We paid 67 cents for these that day, and they sold on best offer for $9. I don't know what I got the offer for these cards, and I was like, wow, that's a low offer. But then I was looking at how much I had them priced for, and I was like, boy, I had these like really overpriced. I don't know what I was thinking with how much I priced these for. So I went ahead and just accepted that offer, and I actually went in and lowered the price on some of the other cards that I had listed. I don't know. Sometimes you just are listing things and you're not really thinking about it. So I don't know what I was thinking with my original pricing on these cards, but we did accept that low offer. Next up was a Banana Republic black knit puff sleeve scoop neck dress. We had found this also in the Goodwill bins, and I had pulled it aside because I thought I might keep it for myself. So I had already rolled the cost of all of my other Goodwill purchases into everything on my spreadsheet that day. So I have my cost of this as 0 because I had already worked out the math. And then once I looked at it more and tried it on, I decided I didn't want to keep it. And so we did end up listing it, and it sold for $15.18, and we got positive feedback on it. So I'm glad that I listed it and found somebody who liked it better than I did. Next up was a Haynes Jeep CJ automotive repair manual. We got this at the Reseller garage sale where we paid $3.28 for each item, and this sold for our full asking price of $22.99. Next up was a 2.5-inch Nintendo Pokemon PVC figure. This one was the Mega Garchomp. We found this in a thrift store toy bag. We paid just 10 cents for it, and it sold on offer to buyer for $17.98. And I was surprised at how long it took to sell. It did take quite a while to sell. Next up was a Brussels Airlines red plastic Smurfs lunch or activity box. I guess they used to, or maybe they still do. I don't know. I've never flown on Brussels Airlines, but I guess they give out activity boxes with, different craft activities to kids on the planes in these Smurfs activity boxes, and this was from that. So we got this at a thrift store. We paid $2.07 for it, and it sold on best offer for $16. Next up were more of the Texas Rangers pins from the estate sale. This one included the 4-pin set that had Nolan Ryan, Oates, Sundberg, and Huff that were Rangers Hall of Fame pins. And then it also included the Hall of Fame pins John Wetland and Tim Holtz. And then also the Rusty Greer Hall of Fame pin and the Texas Rangers first World Series pin. We had paid in total for all of those pins $18.80 at an estate sale, and these sold for a best offer of $50 even. Next up was something we got in the Goodwill bins. It was a holiday time instant decor repositional peel and stick snowflake wall art. This was brand new in the package, but the packaging and the very edge of the inside of like a couple of the snowflakes did have a little bit of wear where the package had kind of come open, which we disclosed that. We had paid 68 cents for these at the Goodwill bins, and they sold on best offer for $10. Next up was a 2019 McDonald's Happy Meal toy, and it was a Hello Kitty mermaid. This came out of one of our own personal Happy Meals, and the buyer paid $6.99 for it, which I think was a best offer, but I'm not 100% sure on that. If you see a different price on the tile here, then that means it was a best offer. If you see $6.99 on the tile, then that means they paid full price for it. So we had no cost on that since that came from one of our own Happy Meals. Next up was an item we got from the storage unit, and this is something that many people might have just thrown away, but when I always look everything up because you never know what has value. And when I looked this up, other VHS tapes by this minister, Ron Canoli, I'm not sure if I'm saying that last name correctly, other VHS tapes by Ron Canoli had a really good sell-through rate. I could not find any other lift him up tapes by Ron Canoli, which is what this was. And so I thought that we had a good shot of selling it because there were none other listed and none other recently sold. So probably somebody was looking for it. This was just the tape only. We did not have the sleeve. We did test it and it worked. And we had paid 23 cents for it from that storage unit, and it sold for our full asking price very quickly of $14.99. So if you ever see anything by Ron Canoli, I would pick that up because I did notice that his items have a very good sell-through rate. I don't know about books or anything like that, but all the VHS tapes that I looked at had a very good sell-through rate. Next up was that Disney Frozen My Princess replacement shoe that we had sold in the last What Sold video, and then it got returned because the buyer said that she didn't realize it was just a single shoe. I relisted it and I tweaked the title a little bit. You'll see I put 1 times shoe only so that I was very clear about it being 1 shoe, even though I had definitely included that information very clearly in the condition description and the item details in the listing. We always try to learn from things like that when they happen to us and improve our listings. But it sold immediately again when we relisted it for $9.99, which was our full asking price. Our total out-of-pocket cost on this, because we had to pay the shipping on the first time we sold it, was $3.67. So we were just recouping some of our cost with this second sale, but so far so good on this sale going out, and I think it's found its forever home, hopefully. Next up was another item from the storage unit. This was a Despicable Me Kids yellow Minion beanie. This sold for $14.99, which was our full asking price. And like I said, we had only paid 23 cents or 24 cents, depending on the item, for the things from the storage unit. So we're just making all kinds of money from that storage unit that we thought was just going to be, maybe barely squeaking by. Next up was a replacement subwoofer for a Vizio soundbar. This we got from the B-Stock liquidation pallet, and it sold for $59.98 on offer to buyer. And like I've mentioned in previous videos, we had an out-of-pocket per item cost of $47.18, but we are in the profit on that purchase as a whole, so that's good news. Next up was an executive portable travel golf putter set. So you could screw all the pieces together and it would turn into a full-size putter. I had picked this up at a garage sale for $5. It did sell for only $20 even on best offer. It was branded with like a company name, which we disclosed. We didn't have a big profit on this at all. Probably not an item I would pick up again unless it wasn't branded. Next up was a Hot Wheels Racing NASCAR Thunder Rides die-cast motorcycle. This was in a toy bag from a thrift store that we got. We paid just 10 cents for it, and it sold for $11.98. We did have quite a bit of interest on this, lots of watchers and several questions on it, and it sold pretty quickly. We got positive feedback on it. I'm not sure why there was so much interest on it, but I would probably keep my eyes open for those Hot Wheels NASCAR motorcycle in the future. Next up was something from the storage unit. This was a Sharagano, not sure how to say it, leopard print silky halter jumpsuit. This sold for $23 even on best offer, and we had paid just 24 cents for it. Next up was another item from the storage unit. This was a Sony Handycam camcorder with a case. It was untested because we did not have the battery. It had a battery, but it didn't have a cord or anything. We had no way to charge it and no way to test it. So we put it on auction and sold it as untested. We'd paid just 23 cents for that, and it sold on auction for $56 even. Next up was an OtterBox Otter plus Pop Symmetry hybrid case. This was something we got at a garage sale. We paid $2 for it, and it sold for its asking price of $22.99. Unfortunately, we made a mistake in this listing. We had listed this item as new, and when the buyer got it and took it out of the box, they noted that it had like you know, some obvious wear on it, that it was still in really good condition, but they noted that it had some wear on it that where it had obviously been used before. So they returned it as item not as described, and we refunded them. They were nice about it. We didn't get negative feedback or anything. You know, we just apologized and explained that we made a mistake. I used the "you're right" technique, which I always try to do when we make a mistake, and just, you know, apologized. So we actually relisted that item as used for a much lower price, and it sold again immediately. Next up was a package of Kodak photo paper that we got at the thrift store. This we paid $1.35 for. It was brand new, sealed, and it sold for $18.38, and we got positive feedback on that. Next up was a lot of 2 men's Nike t-shirts. These came from the storage unit, so we paid just 24 cents for those, and they sold for our full asking price of $17.99. Next up was a genuine DirecTV remote control. We tested it and it worked. This sold for $6.79, which is really low, but we were having a sale on electronics items this particular month, so our sale discount applied, and the buyer got a really good deal on it, and we probably just broke even. That happens sometimes when you have a discount coupon on some of your lower cost items. This we had gotten at a thrift store for 54 cents, probably in a bag of remotes. Next up was a pink Capello DVD CD player. We had gotten this at a flea market. We paid $5 for it, and it sold for our full asking price minus the electronics discount for $29.74. Next up was a bottle of Avon non-tear shampoo. This was the Small World series, and we had the Asian bottle. We had gotten this at an estate sale. We paid $6 for it, and it sold for $29.68 on offer to buyer. It sold very quickly. Next up was a Ralph Lauren jeans women's button-up shirt. It had like a ruffle on the neckline area. This we had for quite a while in our store before it sold. We had picked this up at a thrift store for $4.59, and it did eventually sell for $27.68 on offer to buyer. Next up was a really good sale, and I've mentioned this artist in the past. If you ever see any prints or artwork by the artist James Bama, definitely pick them up. He is a very popular artist. His artwork sells very well and for very high. This was a James Bama limited edition signed and numbered print of the print Winter Trapping. This one sold for $799.99, which was our full asking price. And we had no cost associated with this because it came from another business that we own. It was old stock that business no longer sells. And finally, the last thing was a vintage 1992 wall quilt pattern by the artist Sandy Gervais. It was called Oh Holy Night. We had gotten this in the Goodwill bins. We paid 61 cents for it that day, and it sold on offer to buyer for $11.98. And last but not least, I'll go over all of the collectible cards from my husband's personal collection. We did not have any high value cards this particular week, and we only had a couple of low value cards. We sold 4 low value cards for a total dollar value of $7.28. So that wraps up our sales for the week of October 15th through 21st. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button with the notification bell turned on so you can be kept informed of all of our latest content. And make sure you hit that like button. It really helps us out. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the flip side.